Welcome to Sci-Fi-Legends stories. If you're enjoying the epic clash between humans and aliens, make sure to join our community. The calcium pillar fractured, not cracked, not splintered. Fractured, a word Kazrak would later file in his report with the same precision the human had used to shove him sideways. Her palms flat against his chest plate, his biometallic skin conducting the sudden heat of her, the impossible warmth of something so soft pushing something so much larger out of the kill zone. She disappeared under the white waterfall. Her hand stayed visible, just fingers curled around a chunk of fallen enamel the size of her own skull. The dust hadn't even settled before Kazrak's electrical arc started firing. Panic responses he hadn't felt since his first molt. The calcium sample in his pouch had still been cool then, 47 hours before the pillar broke. Before the human named Mira Veles showed him what a body looked like when it refused to stop. The water recycler in Barrack 7 had been making that same grinding noise for 3 days. No one had filed a repair request. Kazrak remembered noticing it during his morning patrol. The high-pitched whine that meant the compressor blades were scraping housing he'd meant to log it. He hadn't. Which meant he stopped that thought before it finished. Focused on the sample instead, milky white. Veined with impurities that caught the station's emergency lighting, a good harvest. The Vorska would trade well for this vein. Then the human spoke. "You're staring at that rock like it owes you something." Mira Veles sat on a collapsed support beam, forearms resting on her knees, head tilted. Her uniform was torn at the left shoulder. The fabric underneath was darker than it should have been. Blood. She'd been bleeding for at least an hour. Maybe 2. The Vorskan patrol had found her ship's crash site 30 clicks north. A survey vessel, civilian registered, no distress signal. She was the only body that got up afterward. Kazrak's arcs flickered. It's not a rock. It's calcium ore. The Vorska use it to regenerate their exoskeletons after molting. Huh. She looked at the chunk in his hand. Then at the ceiling of the collapsed cave they were both trapped inside. Then back at his face. So they grow their armor back. Yes. Must be nice. She stood up, walked to the eastern wall where the fissure had begun to spider outward an hour ago, put her palm flat against the coldest section, closed her eyes. Kazrak watched her, watched the way her breathing changed, slower, deeper, like she was counting something inside her own chest. The Killik observer at the base had warned him about humans. Unpredictable, high pain tolerance, emotionally volatile. Not a song Kazrak recognized. Something low and rhythmic, the melody circling back on itself like a loop he couldn't find the end of. The sound vibrated through the calcium dust still hanging in the air. His biometallic skin registered it as frequency, not music. A steady 220 hertz, give or take. The eastern wall groaned. Mira opened her eyes. This section's got about 20 minutes, maybe less if we keep talking. You can tell that by touching it? No. She wiped dust off her palm. I can tell because the last time I heard that specific creak pattern, I was 17 and my father's dive bell had just cracked at 60 meters. Kazrak's electrical arc spiked. You survived a dive bell collapse. I survived the instructor dragging me out through a hatch the size of a dinner plate. She smiled. It wasn't a happy expression. Want me to show you the two-handed version? He didn't understand the question. But then she was moving not toward the fissure, but toward the calcium pillar that had almost killed him. The one she'd shoved him away from. She crouched beside the fallen chunk she'd been gripping when the dust cleared. Her hand, still reaching through. He hadn't imagined that. The Vorska grow their armor back, she said, running her fingers along the enamel's fractured edge. Humans don't. We've got this stuff called enamel on our teeth. Hardest thing our bodies make. 96% calcium phosphate, same family as your ore here. So you do regenerate. No. She picked up the chunk. It was heavier than her head. She held it like it weighed nothing. Once it's gone, it's gone. We don't grow it back. We just learn to chew on the other side. Then the Killik's third eye, Kazrak's report would later call it a seismic shift. But that wasn't what happened. What happened was the floor dropped, not down, sideways. The entire eastern wall she'd been studying sheared off its footing and became a slope, and the human was already moving. Already shouting something he couldn't hear over the grinding of 1,000 tons of calcium rearranging itself. She grabbed his wrist. Her grip was wet, sticky. Blood from her shoulder wound had soaked through the torn fabric, and now it was on his biometallic skin, hot and slick, and human in a way that made his arcs misfire. Move or die, she said. Those are the options. They moved. The calcium sample in his pouch bounced against his hip with every stride. He'd meant to log it as a resource, a trade good, something the Vorska would pay in fresh armor plating for. She pulled him through a gap that shouldn't have fit either of them. Then another. Her boots found holds his claws couldn't feel. Her bleeding hand never let go. Gone. The thought didn't finish. The world became calcium and dust, and the sound of her humming through it all. That same looping melody, steady as a heartbeat, steady as something that had decided not to stop. They emerged on the upper terrace 47 minutes later. Mira sat down, put her back against a calcium column, closed her eyes. Kazrak stood over her, breathing in ragged bursts he couldn't control. His arcs were firing every second now. Visible electricity crawling across his chest, his arms, the ridge of his mandibles. She opened one eye. "You okay?" I just watched a soft-bodied mammal navigate a calcium collapse by sound, echolocation. She shrugged. "My dad taught me. Deep-sea diving thing. That's not." He stopped. Forced his arcs to calm. Failed. The Killik said humans were dangerous. I thought they meant your strength, your endurance. What do you mean now? He looked at the calcium sample in his hand. It was stained now. Red in the crevices, dried and dark. Her blood. Resource, he'd thought. Witness, he understood. I mean, you didn't panic. Not once. 47 hours in a collapsed cave, with a stranger who could have killed you and you just... He couldn't find the word. You just kept solving problems. Mira opened both eyes, looked at him for a long moment. On Earth, she said, we call that Tuesday.